Hi there. Maria Toso, founder of the Heal What Hurts method, talks about all things emotional triggers and how we can heal the emotional reactivity by understanding where it's really from. Simply said, holding ourselves in deep love and compassion instead of judgment, and instead of numbing ourselves, and instead of trying to change someone else, because we tend to pick the exact people that will trigger us on what is unresolved within. Where are the knots in our energy system, and how do we project them out, and then they sort of come back to us in the form of human situations, our human beings, relationships, jobs, family even. So when we get to that point where we say, okay, I'm recognizing that I have something to do with what's happening in my life. I'm now maybe at an age where I start to see a pattern that I am co-creating in a very real way what's happening, specifically in my relationships, but really in anything. That's what feels visceral, is where it's, our close relationships, whether it's partner or friends or, even colleagues perhaps. But at the end of the day, as yogis, we start to at least be willing to consider that we have a lot to do with what our life looks like today. So we step out of the role of victim, and even if we have been victimized, and even if we have been generationally victimized, for example, maybe our family was not of wealth, so it's been a long succession of people that had to fight hard for their money, work hard for money, for example. And then you're left with a money mindset that is, oh, money is hard to come by, and I'm not sure I'm going to have enough, and I'm not sure I'll be safe financially. So that's another way that a trigger can play out. We sometimes can think of triggers only as what shows up in personal relationships, but it shows up everywhere. So you can say really anywhere where you feel scared and untrusting of the flow of life through you and of your own life experience, you're really bumping into places where life is not able to flow through you. And what helps life flow through a place that's contracted is when that place is held and radiated with and embraced with loving presence. Not the kind of loving presence that would go into that place and say, I believe your story. So if the story is there will never be enough money for me and I will never be able to do what I love for a living, I have to slave away at a job I hate, and then I can do my hobby on the weekends, only I'll be too tired. If you have a story like that, because maybe you've never seen anybody in your family do what they love for a living, so the mere thought that you could it's just not right there and available to you. No one else has forged that path for you. So when you think of doing it, perhaps you get the divine inspiration from the divine within you to take what you love and make it what you do for a living, and how you spend your day. Then you bump into all those beliefs. And now if you sort of untangle each of these beliefs one at a time, you can then you become the person that forges the path. And all of a sudden it will be much easier for your daughter and your daughter's daughter, or son and son's son, or whatever, to do what no one else in your family has done before. So when we talk about the Heal What Hurts journey, I want you to know that I mean that in the broadest sense. Anywhere where your life feels like it's hurting you, where it's not flowing, where energy is not coursing freely through, those are the places that we end up addressing. And we address them by being really present in the body. So when I take people, I take both groups and individuals through the Heal What Hurts journey, and I call it a journey because every step of it is a discovery and is a sort of coming closer to the divine within and being more aligned with the divine within. And it's not like it ends. So I will teach you in very real way methods, techniques, practices, exercises, meditations that will open this up to you, will help you open up your own awareness of the energy field of your body, be really aware of your own programming, how your programming has likely played out for a long time, and how programming can feel like a truth. So in this program, on this journey, we also look very carefully at what is the programming that comes to the surface. It becomes very evident. And then we can work with it with love and with patience, and we can start to shift something. But if we're not looking at the underlying programming in any individual, and then we say, oh, I'm just going to do a bunch of positive affirmations to sort of, power my way through something that doesn't feel right. I'm not saying that can't work. I think positive affirmations and the whole law of attraction work is very, very powerful, and that you can indeed kind of push through some of your old patterns. But I also have seen patterns trip people up more than once, a lot, myself included, where you think you're just there, you've done your affirmations, and it's almost opening up. And then it's almost like these old beliefs come and grab you by the ankle and like, oh, no, you don't. And you're pulled back down into this mud pool. And that can feel like, oh, this is so unfair. I can never, fully create what I want. And a lot of people come with that feeling, and then, and I've had that feeling myself for sure. And there can be some shame associated with that. Like, I thought I was this manifesting person, I'm doing everything that is there, and then something, trips me up, and it must be because I'm bad. And it's not at all. I mean, there's no human being walking on the planet today that isn't carrying a really big backpack of samskaras, as we call them in yoga, of old contracted patterns that are operating and that are born out of wounding and hurt and prior experiences and karma. And we are here in this day and age, which, by the way, in yoga, we would say that we are in an epoch called the Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga is the densest and darkest of ages on one hand, like we're really far from perceiving ourselves as divine beings, and very far from treating each other as divine beings, right? Because we're so certain that what I do to you doesn't hurt me. I really feel that separate from you, that if I cause harm to you, it has nothing to do with me. That is how humanity lives for the most part today. But there is, there's sort of light at the end of the tunnel there, because we do have an illumination that is coming through, and more people are starting to realize oneness and becoming more and more willing to work inwardly with what's not quite right out there. And I think more and more people are also realizing the futility of going into a whole lot of bargaining with somebody else to have them meet our needs. So in the Heal What Hurts journey, which it's typically 8 weeks when I do it with either groups or individuals. I've also done it over the course of a weekend, or even mini courses where I do it over the course of like a day, or even a very condensed day, like 4 or 5 hours. But the process is one of becoming very, very aware of yourself as a spiritual being. And that's not really something that I can convince you of in a YouTube video or podcast, however you end up listening to this. That's an experience. And it's an experience that you will have because you are a divine being, and you will have that experience when you become aware enough of your breath and of your body. So when you breathe and notice your breath, and then to the exclusion of all the mind chatter, which is one of the many techniques for just kind of quieting down the mind, really being aware of the breath, and then taking that even further, staying aware of the breath and becoming very aware of the body. And I mean the kind of body awareness you only can have when you become really, really still inside, and you feel every little iota of your body, every little piece of your body. And that again would take a while for me to guide you through that, but I do have other videos and meditations there that could help you do that work on your own for sure, both learning to breathe more deeply and noticing where the breath is contracted and where the diaphragm might not be optimally moving, so that you bring oxygen into this beautiful body. And when you become fully aware of every inch of your body, as much as you can. I like to say most of us walk around like a light bulb that's is receiving electricity. You know, you could think of the socket of a light bulb. We all have that access to the grid and to let's call the power, the divine. We all have that. Our sockets are equal. It's sort of like we each have equal access. But if I have a 10-watt bulb or a 20-watt bulb, thinking of old light bulbs, it's going to be pretty dim, the light, right? And that can be because of my lack of presence in the body. It can be because of how I treat my body and how much I've numbed out my body. And the practice of yoga and of this journey that I'm describing to you is of becoming like a 40-watt light bulb, 50, 60, 70, and eventually becoming like 100, 1,000 watt light bulb. And then you're so illuminated that you start to spontaneously heal a lot of things, first of all, but that's sort of like an added benefit. But with all that light and awareness in your body, you become really aware of where everything is. So when someone hits you on an emotional trigger, in some cases, all that light and presence is actually enough to take the charge away out of that trigger. And that's beautiful when that happens. But more often than not, if that trigger has been in place for lifetimes, as is the case for a lot of people, because we have lived for many, many lifetimes, then it might take a little more work of inquiry, of holding, of being with that place within. Now that's first and foremost, we're learning to love and hold and tolerate all the feelings inside without going into a sad story about it. So to use the example from before, if you think I'm going to forge my path, doing what I love for a living, no one in my family has ever done that before, I'm going to do that. And here comes all the stories about how that could never happen. So there's something always holding me back. Now you can go into that very real sensation in the body. You know, that can be a lump in the throat, a knot in the stomach, something in the chest. You know, you will find out where it lives in your body. And then you go to that place and hold it and you stay with it. You feel the fear that's contained here, the contraction, the contracted state is like an ice cube that needs to be melted. But, and you can also investigate what the story is here. No one can do what they love for a living. That's not happening. That's like a precious few in the world, and I can't be one of them. So that could be the story. And then once we know the kind of the raw story that's in there, we can dissect it. We can come to challenge it, and we can come to see where that might be coming from. And then we can start to bring a new story in as a very real possibility, but not as a, here's my belief, and then I'm trying to stuff another belief on top of it. Do you see what I mean? But we can get lost in the story that's just kind of grabbing us and hijacking the process that we're trying to do. And then we're just in that story, and it's incredibly depressing, and it won't let us go. And that is what Eckhart Tolle, in his book, The Power of Now, that I highly recommend, he talks about that those dark sides of us that have almost become these malignant forces within us grabbing us. And he calls it the pain body, and that can kind of take over, where it's like you're no longer there. Your own light has kind of been dimmed by this shadow side of yourself that's been born out of these wounds. And that's also why these wounds are so important to tend to with love, but the kind of love that you would give to an abused child, right? Lots of love, lots of presence, but you're not gonna let the child run the show or start driving the car or make the decisions. That child needs to be healed. They don't need to start, making decisions for your life. Yeah. So we go through this process of becoming more embodied, being more in the body, feeling our breath a lot more, being more aware of how things impact us, both things we ingest, other people, situations. There might even be places that you're not going to want to go because it's like, I'm too porous now. I'm too kind of refined in my sensibility and my energy field that there are places I can't go. There are places I want to go more. You'll likely want to be in nature more and be like in bars less. There's just like, you want the light, you want the high vibration, you want the high frequency. And that in turn starts to feed you, so that helps the healing process of these places within. Then we start working with, like I said, uncovering what scripts are running, and then we can replace this script. And once we have gone through that, and that's not a linear process, it's a circular process that will likely, go on forever, but you'll get better and better at it. But once you've done all that, it becomes a lot easier to make decisions. So then you might look at your actual life circumstances. Often when we are deeply wounded and we have very deep samskaras and places that really hurt, and stories that are really painful, we have drawn to us the actors that helped us enact that painful scenario. And whether those people are also going to transform so they can now play new roles. They will no longer be your abuser. They will no longer be the person that lies to you or lets you down, because that might have been one of the samskaras that you were living out. So I'm not saying that person couldn't transform along with you. I've seen that. But he or she or they might not. And in which case there will come a time when you have to make those decisions. So, but you're in a much better place to do that. You're far better equipped to do it when you're not judging based on a totally triggered state of wanting somebody else to satisfy something within you that you need to learn to satisfy for yourself. So that's sort of in a nutshell, very quick distillation of the Heal What Hurts journey, process, method, however you want to think about it. And I love taking groups through that. So I encourage you to visit my website, my name, mariatoso.com, go into the Heal What Hurts section of that, and look at the different options that are coming up. It's a powerful thing to do in a group, and yet for some people it's too private. The things that come up are too private and not something that you want to share in a group. And that's the temperament. Do you want to do this in a group setting? It's very small groups. I do it with 8 people at a time. Or do you want to work privately with me? I have coaching packages where we go through it and we meet one-on-one on Zoom, and we dive in together while you still go through the 8 steps. Along with that comes the online course that just makes sure you sort of get a lecture for each step, meditations for each step, while you're also working with me live. And then you can also just purchase the course, which is, you could say the cheapest way to do it. And depending on how you work, if you have the discipline to really do these meditations, I can guarantee you that even if you simply do the course in and of itself without any further involvement from me, you will absolutely see amazing results. I mean, that's a guarantee. And finally, I put so much content out. I mean, between all the YouTube videos and the podcast, and I also put meditations on Insight Timer, the app, there's quite a bit you can do without ever, paying me a penny, and still delving deeply into this path of clearing and releasing what hurts so deeply within. Yeah. So, that's probably about as much as I'm going to say about it tonight. You're always welcome to email me, and go to my site, mariatoso.com, go to contact, send me an email that way, and I do get in touch. I do answer questions, and I do help you figure out what is the best path for you, and I help you work with whatever your financial situation is. I help you work out a path that works for you. This is really important work, and there's a way for everyone to do it. So I look forward to hearing from you one way or another.